evening and welcome to Norwalk City School District Board of Education regular meeting, Wednesday, January 10th. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Burkett. Here. Mrs. Crawford.
Here.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Here.
Mr. Norris.
Here.
Mr. Ritzenbauer.
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do you have a motion for adoption of the agenda?
Second.
Second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Norris.
Yes.
Mr. Ritzenbauer.
Yes.
Mrs. Burkett. Yes. Mrs. Crawford.
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Yes.
Special presentations.
First, I'd like to thank everyone for coming here tonight. This is a big evening for the Norwalk City School District. We have a lot of exciting things happening, and our future is looking very bright. We always, at every school board meeting, like to bring students in front of us as an educational spotlight. So how many of you in the audience here had a chance to see the performance at Main Street? Anyone get to see the actual full show? So that's been relatively close to now. We want to have them perform in front of you. So it's like why we're in the business of what we are. We work with students and we're with kids every day. And this is why what we do is very exciting. So we're going to turn it over at this time to Jamie Brooker and Allison Schnell, and they will introduce the kids. You'll see not the entirety, but you'll see some of the performance, and then we'll move into our Garmin Miller presentation. So once again, thank you for being here this evening.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Jamie Brooker. Allison Schnell is in the sound booth. Allie, give them a wave. We are here to present to you about 5 or 6 minutes of A Year with Frog and Toad Kids. This is a musical that our school did in December, right before break, and it was fantastic. We worked really, really hard. We started working on it at the very end of September, and we got it ready for performance in December, and we did 2 performances, and it was just fantastic. It was better than I could have ever imagined, and here's a few minutes of it. These are just a few of the students. There were 32 students in the show. We had 2 students on crew, and here we have Frog. Frog, wave your hand, Frog. Frog is London Clifton. I'm going to make sure I pronounce everybody's names correctly. Toad. Can you come this way a little bit so that everybody can see you? Frog is London Clifton. Toad, Eleanor Welschenbach. We have our bird girls, Ella Ames. Give a good wave. Nora Butler. Stella Schaefer, Jenica Pfeiffer, Kaya Kreischer, and then our snails, we have Charlotte Hahn, did you wave? Hudson Migro, Bowen Brooker, and Serenity Sigler. Did I get everybody? Okay. And we are going to, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I see for the future of our program at Main Street and the junior high, but I want to first show you just a couple minutes of what we have done with Main Street Drama Club.
We flew south for the winter, south for the winter. Every fall we pack our things and go. We know just how to assignments to find the proper climate. One that doesn't feature any snow. 'Cause when it snows you shiver and it's difficult to fly. There isn't any food, which is another reason why. We go south for the winter, south for the winter. But we're back, it's almost spring. Winter now is over. The snow has walked in snow. Spring is here, which starts the year with frog and toad. Spring is almost here. The sun will shine. The flowers will grow. The birds will chirp, chirp, chirpity chirp. Over here we have frog, and over here we have toad. That's the end of this long hibernation. I wonder what they're dreaming about. I'd like to sing a little about my good friend Toad. Toad and him we frequently take seat. He's also good at sports, and of course he's got no sports. But Toad has been a lovely friend to me. I love to laugh all day long with my good friend Frog, getting over cozy cups of tea. He knows just the thing to say that will brighten any day. Oh, my Frog has been a lovely friend to me. Hello, Toad. Hello, Frog. How was your winter been? Well, I've been hibernating, so there isn't much to report. This is a very nice dream, Toad. Yes, it is, though I'm getting ready to wake up, so you better get back to your spring. Yes, I'd better get back to hibernating. Spring is nearly here. Oh, I think it's just around the corner. The sun is out, the sky is clear. We came back, spring's almost here. So let's begin another year. A year with Frog and Toad. A year with Frog and Toad. Toad, your alarm clock is ringing. Wake up, it's spring. Frog, what time is it? It's 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock is my sad time of day. Why? Because 10 o'clock is when the mail should come. And I've never gotten a letter. Never? Never, ever. Toad, will you please excuse me? There's something I must do. Sure, go ahead, Frog. Hello, Frog. Both these are my friends the snails. What are you doing? I'm writing a letter to Toad. Wow. Will you do me a favor? Of course we will. Can you deliver this letter to Toad for me? You want us to deliver a letter? Yeah, would you? Absolutely. We'll deliver your letter for you, Frog. You can count on us. We're carrying a letter, a most important letter, a letter Frog has written to Toad. I love to stay chat, stick around and chew the fat, but when duty calls, I must hit the road. I'm a snail with a mail, I deliver without fail, in the rain or sleet or snow. No snails people fleet, a lion, practically a cheetah. I put the dough in escargot.
Thank you so much for doing this again. We worked on this yesterday. I thought it would take a little bit, but we went through it twice and we were ready to go once again. It's been almost a month. They still had it memorized. They didn't even need a script. Very proud of you. It's stuck in their heads. I am ready to, Mrs. Schnell and I are ready to get started with a junior high production. We are going to be doing The Trial of Goldilocks. It is a comedy told in prose. It is a court case of the crimes of Goldilocks. Is she innocent or guilty? There is a very, very funny lawyers, the victims of the Three Bears. There's a very forgetful judge. There are vendors that get involved with the audience. Things go missing in the audience, and it's a very interactive show. It is not a musical, so we are trying out different types of theater. So when students come to Main Street, we're hoping that they get introduced. A lot of these students have never been on stage when they get to 5th grade. And so our goal is to give them that experience, to give them an opportunity to see if this is something that they want to do, to see if this is a skill they want to pursue, a passion that they want to pursue, and to let them continue. A lot of us are familiar with Mr. Ford's 8th grade play, and my goal was to bring it back, but bring it back with 7th and 8th grade, and letting us kind of see where things could go and trying some different types of theater, not always doing musical. And I know Mrs. Rogers is also doing that, and just trying to grow our theater program here at Norwalk City Schools. And I know Mrs. Schnell and I just can't wait to see that start with the younger grades and continue. And by the time they get to high school, then see how much experience that they have with being on stage. So I'm just very excited to be in this position. Thank you so much.
I said you need that.
All right, if I just say one word that's powerful with what we're doing here, we're always looking for giving kids more opportunities. And we've done so much with esports, STEM, all the computer tech labs. One thing we've said, like, we need to get, because we have such a strong arts program here, performing arts. You walk these hallways, you see what's on these walls, beautiful things. So as a high school principal for such a long time, I was amazed all these years on how many students have confidence when they get up on the stage because they own this stage. And they might be a student that doesn't show that during the school day, and it's no different with seeing the students here. You're talking 5th and 6th grade, soon to be 7th and 8th grade, people that giving them an opportunity to do something that otherwise they don't get to do. For some people it's sports, for some it's the stage, for some they do multiple things. But I said confidence is awesome because you saw some of these individuals up here, confidence was, you saw some of those waves. Maybe there's too much confidence, but there's confidence there, and that's what's awesome. We're giving our kids opportunities to thrive here. So we are now at this point going to turn it over to Garmin Miller, Eric Balsell, and Brian Wolf. We have worked with them to look at opportunities to build a new facility here for Norwalk City School District. We currently have 6 buildings that are serving our students, and we're looking to be more efficient. We're looking to say, we don't need to operate 6 different buildings. Let's get something manageable so we're far more efficient serving our kids. There's so many great things happening here, and this is an exciting time for our district because the possibilities are endless, and we're right now at the ground level to make that happen. I'm glad you're here because we want your feedback tonight. If there is a question you have during this presentation, Mrs. Gerber will have a microphone, or if you just want to speak loudly, you can wave her off, like what I'm doing here. If you can speak to that level, that's fine too. If you want to stop because you're seeing something on the presentation and you have a question you want to ask, please do that, because we don't want to go all the way through and say, can I please go back and look at this? So we're very much, they both agreed that if you want to stop, put your hand up, and by all means, we'll do that during. But the bulk of you, I imagine, will want to see the entire presentation, and then we'll have that opportunity for a free-flowing discussion. All right? Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me? Am I on?
Good night.
How about now? Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay, great. Thank you. My name is Eric Baltza. I'm the CEO at Garmin Miller, and Brian Wolf is a principal with our company who's leading this project. So we're just really thankful to be a part of your school district and community. I want to recognize also on our team, they're not here tonight, but Monica Bruall, who's a K-12 planner, and Kathy Trejo, who's a site designer with our company. They've put a lot of effort into this process as well. But just quickly about us, just if you're not familiar, Garmin Miller, we are architectural engineering. We have a lot of other disciplines, full service really design firm that we focus on K through 12 schools. We're based out of Minster, Ohio, or West Central Ohio, but we also have an office in Columbus, Ohio. And we were hired to help you all through a master planning process. So master planning is really looking at, the future of your district over the next 10, 20 years, what's going to be best when it comes to facilities, what's going to support your staff, be the best to support the education of your students. In our process, we think it's very important to have an open community-driven process and make sure that we're very transparent and accurate in the information that we're providing. And most importantly, coming into this with no predetermined outcomes, just listening to you all with what your needs are and what's important to you all, giving you the factual information, and then working together to find what's the right solution for you in the district. So the way we go about this process is, of course, we have the Board of Education who's making the ultimate decisions. Then we're working with the executive committee, which is an administrative team that we're working through the day-to-day logistics and scheduling of meetings and those sort of things. We have a task force, and they're the intermediary between the board really and the community. And then we'll be engaging with the community more and more now as we move forward. So we're giving you all information, task force, community, we're getting feedback from you, and you can see the arrows moving up. All that information is coming up to the board. So we got this communication flow and we're all talking together. So the process can be broken down really into 3 phases: define, discover, and develop. So define is the very first stage where we're engaging with you all, asking you, what are the priorities? What challenges are you facing as a district? What priorities, what's important to you? And that's some of the base foundation information moving forward. Then discover is, bring together all that factual information and bringing that information in, combining it with what your priorities and needs are, and then from there develop this. Okay, now we start putting options together, start putting pricing to that, giving you multiple options and figuring out what's going to be the best path forward. So just to give you a quick rundown of where we're at, we've had a couple task force meetings already. And again, step number 1, we asked the task force, what are the priorities? What challenges are you facing? What do we need to address? It might be hard for you to read, but a lot of these things are common concerns and needs and priorities we see across the state of Ohio. HVAC within aging buildings, safety, having flexible spaces and those type of things. So when it gets to the factual piece, one factor that is important to know is that Ohio has a state program through the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission that is available to all 609 public school districts in Ohio. So what that means for you all, there's multiple programs, but the one that applies to you is called Classroom Facilities Assistance Program, also known as CFAP. So the district was notified that you are in a good position to be funded this year by the state. So of course, there are no guarantees, they're not committing to anything at this point, but just looking at who's been funded and what their budget looks like, they believe that you would be in a good position to be funded. You're ranked 122 out of 609, so number one being the highest need district. So at 122, you are in a good position. So what that means for you is your local share would be 20%, and the state would pay 80% of a classroom facility program through the state of Ohio. So what we're trying to do is by April, have all the information to the state that they need so that they can give you their final master plan. So, we're doing your own master plan specialized to you. The state does a master plan. With their master plan, it's more cut and dry, let's say. They just look at enrollment and the condition of your existing facilities. They're not looking at the things that we are, like with your priorities and needs and diving into those things. They just look at how many students do you have, what's your outlook over the next 10 years, and then what's the condition of the facilities you have, and what would it take to bring those up to their standards. So let's start with enrollment. You're currently at 2,465 students. The OFCC is completing a 10-year enrollment projection. And we just received the draft report December 27th, so we really haven't had a chance to thoroughly vet it. It shows pretty steady, slightly declining, I would say, over 10 years, but nothing major. So the OFCC's philosophy is they're a proponent of efficiencies of space. And what I mean by that is they believe that you should have a building that houses, 1,000 kids or so. So with you being a district of, around that 2,500 mark, they would say that 2 buildings should be the number of buildings you have for a district of your size. That's by their standards. You do have an option of a segmented program. So let's just say theoretically there's another district that the state says you should really have 2 new buildings. That wouldn't apply to you, but 2 new buildings, a district could choose to do just one of the buildings to start with and do a second phase down the road. So that is an option. And depending on what they come back for you all, that could potentially be an option. So when it comes to facilities, the state is looking at these 23 points. So everything from HVAC to windows, doors, electrical. It's a very thorough assessment. They completed an assessment for you all back in 2008. And we worked with the district in 2020 and just did an update, went through the buildings again to see if anything significantly had changed, gave you all updated numbers. And then we did that again in 23. Obviously, every year there's a certain amount of inflation. I think you all are fully aware, especially the last 3 years, the inflation's been a little higher than normal. But the things that we saw when we went through your existing buildings, again, not uncommon from what we see across the state of Ohio with other districts that have facilities of the age that you have. Some of the common things that need addressed are systems. Your HVAC, your plumbing. There's a lot of aging equipment, unit ventilators. There's ceilings, finishes that need addressed. But in summary, what has been found, when we look at your 4 elementaries and your middle school, you can see on here, these would be the renovation costs. So these are the costs to bring the buildings up to the OFCC minimum standards with an existing building. So below the cost of each one of these buildings, you'll see a renovate to replace ratio. So the standard that the state uses is called the 2/3 rule. So if the cost to renovate the building is more than 66% the cost of building new of an equivalent building, they are going to recommend that you abate, demolish that building, and build new. So every one of these buildings, of these 5 buildings, are over that 66%, over the 2/3, where the state would recommend that you abate and dump and demolish. Now, something that we hear occasionally, it's not a hard and fast rule. They don't mandate. Occasionally we have a district that's right on that 2/3 threshold, and for quite a variety of reasons, they may choose to want to keep a building. They are flexible in that, but when you have 5 buildings that are over 2/3, they are certainly going to recommend a new. So we presented this information to the task force, and we said, consider the initial priorities and things that are important to you that you told us, and now you have this information in front of you. And the group overwhelmingly said they want us to keep exploring the option of a new elementary school. When you consider that the state's willing to pay 80% of the cost, and it addresses a lot of the needs and priorities that they talked about at the beginning with, safety, flexible spaces, parking, those different kinds of things. And another piece that they talked about being important as you look at a potentially new building is just being forward thinking of how that could also be utilized by the community and really be a center that not only brings the students and staff together, but the community could utilize. So I'd say we're, through the define, still at the tail end of the discover, and we're starting to get into that develop stage where we're starting to look at options. So one of the first pieces we're looking at is the site. So I'm going to turn it over to Brian.
All right, thanks, Eric. So one of the first steps in that develop phase is to find a site that will support a building of this size with the proper parking and circulation, along with playground space, water detention, and physical education fields that will support it. So what we did is we looked across the street. This is the current site. You can see the high school located here. So across the street, we've got this large piece of land. Now within that piece of land, there is 20 acres that's owned by Norwalk School. Whoop, sorry about that. Wrong button. There's 20 acres right here that's owned by Norwalk Schools. And then adjacent to it on each side is ground that's owned by the county. So we looked at this 20 acres and we got with our landscape designer and our architects, and we said, what will approximately 183,000 square foot building with the appropriate parking, site circulation, playground space, future expansion look like? So we came up with a concept here on the 20 acres. You can see that it's pretty tight. It's a 2-story, and it's not the design of the building. This is just a placeholder for size. But we've got the 183,000 square foot facility here with parking, circulation for parent drop-off, bus drop-off, some playground space here, detention located over here. But the one thing that you're not seeing is the physical education fields that are required by the OFCC. The site's just not large enough. The one other option that we're not really crazy about with the size of this facility is future expansion. One of the things we certainly don't want to do is to build a new school and not plan for future expansion. So it's really tight. The site circulation is another item where there's a lot of cars that are going to be backing up to pick up the students. Every district runs into that. So with this option, it's limited. It works, but it's limited. So that's the first option. Now, what we would like to share is the Ohio School Design Manual from OFCC. They have recommendations and they have requirements. Well, one of the recommendations that they have is to build a new facility, you're going to have 20 acres minimum. And then from there, you're going to increase an acre according to the population, the enrollment of the school. So within the PK8, there's 1,700 students. So that's going to be an additional 17 acres. So 20 with the 17 is 37 is what they're recommending. And you can see that information is located here. So we're on 20 acres right now with that first option. So we talked to the school and we said, well, what are we going to do? Let's put another option together that shows up those 37 acres. And so what we did is we went in and we developed that option. We developed that option knowing that this ground here is owned by the county. Okay, but we want to try to secure that land to keep the building on this site because it makes a lot of sense. It's right across from the high school. Just a lot of efficiencies by having it across from the high school. Security being one of them. So with this option, you can see that we have plenty of parking to support it. We have a circulation line that's now much longer, much better than what we previously had on the other option. We have future expansion for parking if needed. The building can span out a little bit and be a little bit more creative with the design of the building. We have playground space for both the 5-6 and the PK4, which is a requirement. Future expansion of the building on all these different pods is possible. Parking in the back for the buses, for the bus circulation, and then plenty of land for the physical education spaces that are required from the OFCC. So this would be a total of 37 acres. So I just wanted to have you take a look at that for a second. So that's what we are up against now. Is we've got 20 acres, but we need 37 to make it work. So we're working with the school to see if we can acquire some additional land to make it work. So those are the two options that we have currently, and we've got some hands being raised. So. Yep.
Would there be access to Route 20 to get into the school? Is that an option?
Access out to here?
Yes.
It was discussed, but at this time we don't have that option just because of the traffic and what's going on 20. But it's something we can certainly look into. Right now, just so that you're aware, we have an ingress and egress here, over here, here, and here as well. So we've got multiple areas of circulation to get back onto Shady Lane.
As you know, we ultimately have to get cars off Shady Lane because any parent who's been to Pleasant and Maple, you've seen what that looks like. So envision that traffic flow now in this one space. So this is incredible to have two spaces right across the street from one another, but you think about the parent pickup, grandparents coming in, that needs to be right. That needs to be the correct fit. So we clearly need to get traffic off of Shady Lane, and that's where you're doing your loops before you get to essentially that horseshoe to get your child. So super critical in that aspect. We have the mic coming around, whether you want it or not. We're bringing it to you.
Will there be, are there plans for traffic signals there since there's so much congestion in that area, especially with a bunch of high school drivers?
Yeah, so one of the requirements to put the facility there would be to do a traffic study. So a traffic study will be done and those traffic engineers will tell us what the requirements are, give us recommendations. And then if it's something above and beyond what those recommendations or requirements are, they can be addressed.
And clearly the scheduling of these, you're going to have different timing too. So we understand that too from a high school standpoint to all of your elementary, your release times will be different. So you think about that would be a nightmare. I've been in high school for a long time and I say just the high school drivers alone can be a bit scary. Now you're saying, let's bring all these. So clearly those schedules will be adjusted where that flow would make sense for sure.
So how would you acquire that land from the county then? Like, would that be purchased? Would they give that to you? Like, how do you get that?
So we have talked to the county commissioners. Some of you have maybe seen what occurred last year. So very much want to sit back down with our county commissioners and see if that's possible. You know, we're open to many different ways of making this happen. You know, we have sites, we have buildings, we have money to make this happen because you saw the map, you saw the 2 pictures here. I would say confidently, and all of you probably would say the same, I would hate to go forward on a 20-acre site. And then 2 years from now, or immediately, or 50 years from now, people look back and say, why did you do what you did? Who made that decision? Because we're all going to be wrong in making that decision. So if the time is waiting and we have to wait until we acquire, we essentially need that because you want a sprawling ranch. You talk to any design, Garmin Miller or anyone else, where people want to be is a sprawling ranch rather than going high. We had a couple exchange kids that currently attend Norwalk High School. It was interesting. One girl from Finland said, you know what I love about Norwalk High School? There's only 2 floors. She's used to having 5 levels. So could you do this on 10 acres, 5 acres? You're not hitting recommendations, but sure, you can go up, but we don't want to go up. That's the space we need. So we want to get back to the table and talk to our county commissioners because I think that space is critical. 37 acres is critical because we also need that play space. We need that for our kids. The parking will be so beneficial because you think about large events happening here at Norwalk High School, be it the stage, be it in that gym. You know, we have people from all over the state coming here because of our facilities. And now you have the ability to park across the street, even if the activity is here, and walk across. There are so many benefits to that proximity piece.
Is that land for sale from the county?
It is not for sale.
Okay, so it's just open.
Correct. It's not, yeah, it's currently, we're in a shared agreement, so there's a farmer that leases that, and you've seen that, anyone who's been here, you know, you've seen the, you know, alternating crop of corn and beans, and that's how it's been. So yeah, that's kind of a shared lease that we have together with the county, but it is not currently for sale.
Is there an expected lifespan that the Ohio Facility Construction Commission mandates new buildings to be designed to?
There isn't a requirement, but they require certain materials to be used, and there's some materials that can't be used on their facilities. One of those being metal roofs, like your stucco materials. They want typically the buildings to be constructed of concrete block, masonry, but a lot of times, and more times than not, districts will decide to go with a metal roof just because the lifespan of a metal roof being in that 50 to 60 years. They kind of say 50 to 60 years is what they want that lifespan to be. Obviously, there's buildings out there that are older than that, but that's typically the general range of this design this building to last at least another 50 to 60 years.
Okay. So you guys talked about with this being built, the other schools would be torn down, correct? That's the plan. So would that property be sold off and would the school benefit from that to get other projects off the ground, or does that money go if those buildings are knocked down and that land is sold?
Yeah, I can speak to the requirement. It's not required by OFCC to abate and tear them down. It's not a requirement, but they will participate in assisting the school to do that. The school district can find someone that might be interested in purchasing it, and they can go through that transaction of selling it. So,
Because I know like in Sandusky, those old schools are sitting vacant right now, and that's a huge issue for them, right? And they need a lot of, I mean, we need housing, they need housing, so that's kind of where my thought process was, like, you know, you knock those down, you can bring in more people to the city to pay taxes and give us more money essentially, right? So.
Yeah, the state gives you the funding if you choose to abate and demolish. So they'll co-fund it and it would be factored in the project. However, if the school has another purpose for it or they want to sell it, they certainly can. We recently helped Shelby City Schools with their new PK8 And they had a couple existing buildings that they found entities that wanted to purchase and repurpose. So those options are on the table. It's not a, you have to kind of thing from the state. They just offer that if you don't have a purpose for it, they will give you the co-funding to abate and demolish.
So we clearly have discussed, so there's no final answer that we're going to remove these buildings. Like, that is not the case. When you look at the percentage, like, what are buildings we want to save as a community? What do you say, in no way do I want to get rid of those? It's tough for me to say Norwalk Middle School with a gym that we have there, a facility. Who has a gym close to that? That's a middle school gym. That used to be a high school gym. That, for those of you that have been around here, you know that. Like, there might be a space for that. We have Janice Smith here, and she's running Boys and Girls Club. That could be a great spot for that. You think about a large gym location, excellent cafeteria. We might be able to remove some of those hallways that we don't need, and you kind of have that foyer, cafeteria, gym, Boys and Girls Club. Clearly, we have new tennis courts there. We have a beautiful space. So it's tough to me to say the middle school is not somehow in the equation. It might not be in our equation for PK-12 education, but I can see it as a community. We see the need of, like, it should be in the mix. When we look at Pleasant Elementary, it's one level. It's a beautiful setup. What don't we have in this county? What don't we have in this city? Daycare, all those opportunities. Those jump off the page to me of things that we could partner with to make happen. The other ones, and I can tell you because there have been talk, and some of you, if you read my goals and some of what's been in the paper about different schools, can we reconfigure where our kids go now even before that new project happens? I can tell you without even marketing, with never saying any of our buildings are for sale, I've had multiple calls to me of people wanting to purchase our facilities, want to purchase Maine, want to purchase League, even central office on Benedict being looked at. As a community, and you mentioned Sandusky, and obviously I have friends and colleagues there, what you've learned from other administrators is you don't want to sell a building off and not fully knowing what that business and corporation, what their finances are, and what's going to happen. Because I can tell you as a community, none of you will be happy if we sell that off and the money is not there, we can't keep that building up, and it becomes dilapidated. You got holes in the windows, and you drive by and said, what a sad shape this is. And what are you all doing? You're looking back at all of us and our board and saying, why did you let that happen? And we can't sidestep and say, well, we sold that off. Did you forget? We got $1 million for that building. So because the community is always going to look at us and say, that's a school building. That was your screw up. So we're very much aware of that. But I can tell you there is interest, even without marketing. There are people making calls right now just because of what they're seeing. The talk of a new school and knowing Norwalk, unlike maybe a Sandusky, but smaller district, you don't have the number of buildings that we will have available. But there are also a lot of cool opportunities that investors have and people in this community and this county have that have money that can make awesome things happen for others.
Yeah, and one nice thing, and with talking about the middle school, about the gymnasium and the awesome cafeteria, if it's decided that that portion of the facility wants to remain for community use and other areas, but there may be the academic section doesn't make sense. So now, okay, well, we're going to sit here with all this academic space. You can do a partial demolition. So we can go through and say, okay, what do we want this facility to be? And if there's a run of building that isn't needed, the OFCC will partner and help co-fund to abate and demo that portion of the building. So that's a positive thing. Shelby, Eric talked about Shelby. They sold off a couple of their buildings, but they did just that to their existing middle school. They did a partial demolition that they didn't need anymore, and they used the rest of the facility for community and their arts spaces. So yeah, it's a great program, great opportunity.
So if it is decided to demo any part of any of the other schools, does that need to be included with this project? And is that a part of the same 80%, or is that a whole separate?
It'll be all part of one master plan. So when they completely develop the master plan and the budget for it, that decision on what needs to happen to those buildings will need to be determined. Now, if the determination is to demo two or three of the buildings, And after the master plan is finalized, 6 months later, someone comes and says, hey, I want to purchase these buildings. This is perfect for me. It's someone maybe from either in town or out of town. If that decision is made, we have the opportunity to go back to the OFCC and say, hey, people want to purchase this building. They'll just essentially take that money and take it off the plate.
The same will be reversed if we decide to keep schools and change our minds and want to demo later, can we file for?
That's going to be a much more difficult process. That's why we recommend to all of our districts that if you're unsure, just let's put the money in there to take it down. If it's not, then the money isn't spent either way. So.
Yeah, there will come a point if you have a project with the state, it doesn't officially get closed out for a year or two afterwards, because about a year, 11 months after, we walk the building, see if there are any final things that need to be done before your 1-year warranty runs out. Then there's a few months before everything gets closed out. But once that project's closed out, you pretty much miss the opportunity. You can't go retroactively back and say, hey, we decided now we want that money to demo. So like Brian said, you have a little bit of flexibility that it could still happen. A change could be made while the project's in process, but once it gets closed out, you're done with the state.
If the schools were to be built, when would the demolition start and how long would it take to build new schools?
Yeah, so not knowing when the process will start, because we're unsure of when we go out to the community to ask for support. But once the design process starts, for a building of this size, you're gonna have roughly 12 to 16 months of design, planning and design, and then you'll have 2 years to maybe 2.5 years of construction. Some of that is depending on, and not to get too boring about it, but lead times on materials and et cetera. So you have anywhere from 2 years to 2.5 years of construction, and then the demolition would then start immediately after the buildings are constructed. So we're looking at a 4 to 5 year process. Yep.
So I see on your prediction a lot of green space, a lot more utilized space where it's not there. Do you have any ideas for projects for detention in that space, or if you're sitting that for, I don't know, living that? Yeah, are you sitting that for future revisions of this idea, or yeah, other plans?
We don't have any future plans for this particular area. We brought the property line straight through to be able to get some access off of 20 in the event that would ever want to become an access point. We don't plan for it right now, but it could be. There are no plans right now for that, but it could certainly be a practice field, whatever else.
The other thing I would just say about this plan, just keep in mind, this is very conceptual. This is very early stages. We haven't had a chance to really talk through with the school. If this was the route we went forward with, what this site looks like, it would certainly change to some extent. This is just showing you a concept. Until we know for sure, where it's going to be located and the exact amount of land we got to work with, we're not getting too far into the final design. So it's going to be very fluid until we get things locked in.
But I can tell you, we would love to co-locate our bus garage here. So how many have seen like buses are all stationed at Whitney at Contractor Stadium? That's where they're going. You think about the volume of students coming here that live in town that now will have to get bused here. So there's a piece, we're going to be busing a lot more kids that might just walk locally to Maple, to Pleasant, et cetera, to League. That happens. We're having to make that happen. We would love to bring all of our transportation here because we're picking up kids, we're dropping off kids, be it across that street or right here for high school kids. So when you say about possibility for having more space, clearly you look at that wooded area, that's a private ownership there. We've talked, like when you talk about fun things and opportunities for kids, expansion there about learning labs, about your outdoor education things. Like there's a lot of neat things there, but I would love personally on additional land space to say we could move transportation because we're inefficient there. We have people getting in vehicles, driving to Whitney, getting a bus to then come here to get kids to go to Shelby, Willard, Clyde, come back here and drive back. Super inefficient. We can clean that up if buses were stationed here.
Are there any other properties available in town with that much acreage? Have you looked at that?
There is no other land. I mean, we've looked at different places and some have actually mentioned, you probably know land to our east that was like, it's not in the Norwalk School District. It's like Western Reserve. So I've had several people like, you probably could purchase that land. It's like, it's got to be a Norwalk City School District first. So the big acreage that some of you may have seen that I looked at too, like, that's a nice place, not our district. So to be serious to the question, there is no other land that I have right now that we can make that happen. Some districts, when you're trying to run your school and operate your school, where you try to build around. You look at a Willard, for example. You look at Sandusky's building. Like they've had some where you run your school and operations and you're building around that space to make it happen. And then if you're demolishing, new build, move the kids, and that happens. There's no space when you look at our other kid buildings that we have the ability to do to get down to 2 facilities for our district without having this. So I guess the long answer is, yeah, it's not looking like we have much more than this is our ideal. This is our number one.
How do you separate, or I guess what the plan is for, since this will be K through 8, those students? Like you'll have the much younger students with older students at one point.
Yeah, as far as the separation between grades.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's something that will, on Friday, we have a visioning session with the staff here. And that's something that'll be brought up in that conversation on what their thoughts are on it. The separation is usually done with this particular option here. This is, you can do it by pods, where you have them as separate pods. You can do it by different floors. So it's definitely something that we want that involvement with the staff and the administration to help us determine how we want that separation to be. There's some schools that do 2 separate cafeterias with 1 kitchen. So you get that, that cafeteria because some parents, they don't want their kindergarten son sitting next to an 8th grade. Boy, you can learn a lot.
Yes.
Is there any discussion of having, moving the football and track facilities to this location as well? Or space?
That has not been a part of this discussion at all. Obviously, a lot of money was invested, as you know, and so we have been, great partners, vice versa with St. Paul and the Catholic school. So that's been talked about from an athletic booster standpoint as Norwalk boosters, but to say in this spacing, like that has not been a discussion at all. When you look at the land and that opportunity we have here, like we want to get this right for our school. So I know those that are Norwalk truckers to say, wouldn't that be ideal because it's the same thing. We're more efficient. Let's have a track. Let's have everything here. We very much understand that. That's a point that's solid across the board and held by many. But at the same time, we've invested. We have a great facility that we obviously use with St. Paul. So to answer that, like tomorrow, the immediate, no, I do not see that happening at all. I see that good relationship happening with the truckers and flyers at Whitney or Contractor Stadium. Mrs. Gerber, just give her the mic. I know her well. Just have her keep one.
It's not the time today. All right. Okay, this is it. So, okay. So we have a lot of great teachers here. I came from here. You were my principal when I was here. So what happens when we do this? Where do these teachers go? What happens to these principals, right? Because we're going to have 2 buildings. What happens, right? How many principals do we end up with? Because we have great people here, and that's a thought that keeps running through my mind,
You are getting so far beyond where we are right now, but I will do my best to answer that.
Okay.
Clearly, we probably can reduce admin. We probably can reduce secretary, but there are pieces like kids are kids. So put them in 2 spaces, have them in 6, you ultimately need services. So if you look at our administrative team, and I'll speak to the administrative team, like through attrition alone, some will be getting to that point where they make a decision, a career choice that they're going to be finished. And they are going to resign or retire, whatever that be. So like some of that's going to happen. So yeah, we'll be a few less for sure. But you're not going to be one principal, one secretary that can manage that. And teachers, I don't see that changing at all. Like that number of teaching staff, custodial staff, like you have a bigger space. You have 2 spaces, but it's large. So there's a lot of things. I'll tell you where we're going to clean up and be more efficient is all the extended support services. Because with 6 buildings, we need to pay for personnel that we can't have service multiple because you can't travel from Maple to Lee, get to Maine in time for that. So we hire redundant services. That's the stuff we're going to save money on. We're going to clean up drastically there. As you as a taxpayer understand, we are going to save so much there because, and I don't want to go into departments, but you can imagine what I'm speaking to. There are areas that we can't get people from that building to the next. So over there, yeah, you can reduce some of those. So yeah, it's going to be more efficient with staffing, but by no means is it slash and cut staff because kids are kids. The volume is the volume and we need to serve them. So, and I don't buy that that's your last question, but.
What about a walkway above the road for people on back from across the street?
Could you repeat that?
Walkway up like a
skywalk.
walkway.
The turnpike.
Yeah.
You're talking about looking at a walkway across from the high school to the elementary. That's something, obviously it could be looked at. I know there is a state grant out there for those kinds of things. We could look at what that looks like and what kind of costs those are. That just goes back again to making sure you have all the options in front of you.
So yeah, clearly that's nice, but high dollar for sure.
Yeah.
So you go over, you go under. We joked about the El Chapo tunnels underneath. Like we talked, like you probably could tunnel it quickly, not probably safe for what we're gonna do, but yeah, joking aside, that would be nice because we're connected because we will have walkers. You have this whole residential area that people wanna go, they walk across, go through baseball, softball diamond, you gotta cross our natural soccer field and you get back into the community. So yeah, it's definitely nice, but you look at our safety grant funding, we're gonna have that thing from Shady Lane. We're gonna have so many things marked and lights that, you know, I'm doubtful that happens right away. That's high dollar stuff you're talking about. But we're gonna have those where it's like safe paths going through and lights and markers. So that's very much gonna be tied. So that's the realistic plan. We've actually worked with the city and you may have seen that we have funding coming in a couple of years, you're gonna see that. And some of those things that might be at a school that we currently don't use, those things can still be shifted. So if it's lighting of like, how do I slow traffic down to keep our kids safe? Like those type of infrastructure we put in place.
So you said earlier that Ohio would pay about 80% of the cost. Where is the other 20% coming from?
That's local funded, so it would come from the taxpayers here locally.
So, Brian, as a community.
Just a little bit about, if you want to talk about funding. Sorry, I just can't resist. We want to talk about bonds and taxpayer dollars. This high school was completely 100% paid for by our local community. So when you think about only having to pay 20% of our K-8 elementary, that's just huge. That's going to be a big difference. This high school will be paid off next year. So the hope is we're too early to say what it's going to cost, what the millage would be, anything like that. But think about, we paid 100% before. We're only paying 20% now. My hope is that it would cost less to our taxpayers, but I don't want to lock into that yet. But that would be a huge savings for us going forward. Plus, we have a lot of efficiencies built in.
Brett, it's obvious that this isn't going to go forward without the 17 acres from the county. What can the community do to put pressure on the county commissioners to cooperate with the city of Norwalk to get this land for the schools? That's the whole rub here. Everything else is easy. What are you proposing that the community do?
Right.
to put leverage on the county commissioners.
So I would like Dr. Zeta to, as a board, and we have spoken to the county commissioners, I would like to do that again. If that's not successful, we have to clearly, have our minds wrapped around together and say, what can we do? Because I don't have the answer clearly. If I did, I would have been successful last year. So hopefully you have good ideas and you can help, because I think when our community sees this, and this is not just a Norwalk, I've made the argument, this is strong for the county. This is not Norwalk over Western Reserve of, okay, we're going to bring all the students from Monroeville. Who wants to go to Monroeville? Who would like to go to South Central? It's not about stealing kids, because all of us support one another. So the argument that we've heard in the past of like, this is special for Norwalk and this is unfair for what, like, these are places that have full campuses. All school districts in this county want to support one another. I would have a letter from every school superintendent in this county that would say, make this happen. It's not a competitive piece, but at the same time, we want to be successful and have good schools. Because as you know, we have a few realtors in here, and what do people ask? Your wife, when you brought your children, and not to bring personal business here, that is a question, if you're smart, you should be asking. What are the schools here? What do we have locally? Where would you like to attend? Look at Norwalk, look at St. Paul, look at Edison. What are you looking at? You have to make a decision. You might have housing that limits you where you end up. We understand that. Housing is difficult everywhere, but ultimately, that's a big question. I'm in Rotary, and we have several realtors in there, and they say, what's critical? You want to have good schools. So a strong Norwalk is not, we're looking out for ourselves only. My argument is strong for the county too. But I'm open to your ideas of what we could do to make this happen, because I think you see visualizing this depiction that 20 acres moving forward makes 0 sense.
Is there a reason why they don't want to sell it? Do we know that? Or is it?
I don't want to get into, I can't get into, yeah. Her question was, is there a reason that they do not want to sell? Like, I'm not in a position,
Were they not invited tonight? I mean, where are they?
Well, we have two here tonight, so I want to thank you both for coming.
I don't know if they heard that. Would you guys be willing to address why you didn't want?
So if they want to address, that's fine, but they're here to attend, just like all of us. So I'm not going to put them on the spot, because I'm thankful we have 2 of our 3 here tonight. So I'm very appreciative of Mr. Wild and Mr. Bruce.
I'm just very curious about what security elements you're thinking of adding to this school.
Well, there's some standard requirements by the state, like secure vestibules. They within the co-funding and within the manual, there's automatically controlled doors, access control. So the doors are locked down. You have a certain amount of time at the beginning of the day to allow students and staff in, and then the building's locked down. And any visitor has to be buzzed in through the office. They can't just get access into the building. There's other things we look at times with films, different kinds of films on the windows to reinforce the windows. Cameras are part of the manual, so the whole facility inside and out is covered by cameras. So there's a variety of measures, and the way you design it with how hallways and the classrooms are designed. There's a number of other ways too, aside from the facility, that the school, they may already have some of these implemented with different door lockdowns and measures that can be taken within the classroom. So there's a variety of measures that we'll talk through with the school and figure out what's going to be best. But there are some minimums that the state requires through lockdowns and cameras and security systems.
You've mentioned Shelby a couple times, and I'm actually a teacher at Shelby and a resident in Norwalk. So I wanted to come to make sure that I showed support for hopefully you guys getting new buildings. I wanted to also say that you guys did a fabulous job with the design of our building. But one of the things that I love that I haven't heard you guys mention is the location of the board office. We now have our superintendent, assistant superintendent, everybody is on campus with us. We are one campus also, almost exact same design as this. I was wondering, are they going to move the board office so the superintendent and the assistant superintendent and the rest administrators are located? Because I absolutely love that. Because our superintendent's there every single day, walking halls, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for the comment.
Yeah, it's a wonderful
Really
setting.
enjoyed working with Shelby as well. I'll just mention something before Mr. Cooley might have something he wants to say too, but this is a good opportunity for me to mention that there, you know, as we work through this process and talk about what all you want to accomplish through this, there certainly will be at least some amount of additional things above and beyond what the state program would include, and we call those locally funded initiatives or LFIs. And the district office would be a piece. So the school program is specifically geared towards educational spaces. So if you want to do something with district office, you can certainly do that. Just know that it's not a co-funded piece with the state. 100% of that cost would be on the school. So if you chose to move it or relocate it or build onto a building, that would be all local money, just so you all know that.
And yes, we agree. We want the same that you speak to clearly, because being a high school principal for such a long time, it gets lonely at central office. I'll tell you, like, where's the volume? I'm used to people in your face all the time. And now it's like 5 or 6 a day. Like, you need to go traveling. And when I say just stop at buildings, you think about inefficiency of me just going to travel to 6 buildings to check in, not even do an evaluation, just to check in. That can consume a day right there. It's like, talk about a waste of time for my own travel, let alone, but yeah, being with kids every day, you realize that's the excitement. That's why we're in the business. Just like, what's better than what we had to start tonight out with? To have students to see that every day, because that's what keeps us going. So all of us that think we have a rough day, we're one into the next student, you're excited, you know why you're in the field. So we clearly want to make that happen. I've been to new districts like Shelby that have the standalone that's not attached to, but it's still on the same site, or just the extension of another wing of high school office, elementary office, that's your central office wing. So I'm sure you've designed both of those kind of versions as well.
All right, well, if there's no other questions, I just want to thank you all again for giving us the opportunity to present to you. As we look at next steps, obviously, we got a question.
All boils down to getting that land, so that's where everything starts. So if you don't have that, then why spend taxpayers' money on what else?
Yeah. Item number one, really, that's where we're at to keep the process moving. We got to figure out where is the building going to be located, because for us to move forward with more design to get you all the numbers that I'm sure you're all wanting to know, and what's the total scope, depending on where it's located and what the size of the property is, it changes the design, it changes the cost. So that's a piece that we got to figure out soon. And at the same time, though, we're not slowing down. We're working with OFCC and getting them all the information they need. So again, by that April timeline, get them all that they need so they can tell us from their standpoint, what they see as the total project. We're going to work with the school to put together program requirements. So that's just talking about every space that's needed within the building. How many classrooms, how many special need rooms, how many offices, conference rooms. Make sure we've fully accounted for all the space that you would need. And we're meeting with your staff this Friday to go through some educational visioning, to hear from them on, how a new building could enhance and support what they're doing to teach the students. And we're looking forward to scheduling a community informational meeting here soon and getting back together with the task force. So just to give you an idea of kind of the next steps, we are going to keep moving forward and keep the whole process progressing. So thank you.
If you would like to stay, so now we're going to go into our board, like our monthly board meeting. So if you'd like to stay, by all means, we have agendas we will hand out to you. If you came specifically for this, we're going to give you a few minutes if you wish to leave. I know a few of our junior students, they're giving me the eye. They're ready to hit the exit. So that's your choice. You're welcome to stay, but appreciate you coming out tonight. Thank you very much.
You guys need the signature?
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
I'm pretty good.
Good.
How's Garmin?
No, I'm actually the curriculum and technology director, which is why I'm.
What? That's awesome.
Thank you.
I heard there's a new mystery.
There is.
Teaches social
Yep. You took my spot.
I guess that makes sense.
You want an agenda, don't you? Yeah. Can I have two? That's extra. That'll be $5. Oh, it was for my friend. She left. I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you so much. Why, thank you. You're welcome.
How are you? Good. How you been? Oh, man. I do. We were in a small group together back in the day. Here at my house.
Just so you guys know, this table's still on.
Oh,
Make sure I'm not starting on anything.
Oh.
How are you? Just want to say hey, good to see you, bro. Good to see you.
One on the mic. Yeah, right.
All right. Back to the board meeting. Thanks for everyone who stayed. So item number 3, public participation. Each person who wishes to address the board will be asked to give his and her name and address. Remarks should be limited to 3 minutes in length. If after everyone who wishes to do so has had the opportunity to speak, additional comments can be made up to a total allotted time of 30 minutes. Okay, we'll move on to treasurer reports.
Okay, so we do have the minutes for the December 12th meeting. I apologize, we do not have the December financial reports because December is getting a little tricky, so it's not quite ready yet. Hopefully it will be next month. So we don't need that. Then we do have family medical leave extra for our employees. That's estimated time. Cafeteria stipend, with the change in the cafeteria managers, we asked them to do some additional training. So we're requesting that the board approve payments for that for the time that they spend, their own time to do the training. Next, we have the public library trustee. The school district is required to approve the trustees for the public library, but we are in no way affiliated with the public library or with their funding or any of their other decisions, but we are required by law to approve their trustees. So I ask that you approve the whole fee as they would like. That's all I have.
Can I have a motion to approve all items 1 through 4 on the treasurer reports?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call please.
Mr. Norris?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mrs. Burkett? Yes. Mrs. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Rosenthal?
Yes.
Personnel.
Items for approval, I have a resignation of Jeff Burkett. He is a high school science teacher, been with Mr. Kania since 2017. He was a student of mine, so we're going to miss him. He was a Norwalk Trucker grad and went to a great institution, Ohio Wesleyan University. So smart person, and he's going to actually take a science-related position outside of education. So he is going to be departing here, and so we're frantically trying to. Mr. Kania is working to fill the seats, obviously for our kids in second semester and then science classroom. So resignation of Mr. Jeff Burkett.
Thank you. We have a motion to accept the resignation of Jeff Burkett. Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Norris?
Yes.
Mr. Rosenthal?
Yes.
Mrs. Burkett? Mrs. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Continuing with resignations, we have Jennifer Daniels as a special needs aide who has worked at League. Leona Lorcher, executive secretary, who has been with the district for 23 years. Super powerful trucker through and through, and we will miss her greatly. Jennifer Nicolai, a bus driver, will be working for the city, and she is a great person, and a lot of emails have been sent to this board, and very responsive. So we will miss her in the capacity, and any bus driver we will miss, but she's a top-notch person too. So those are the resignations I have. On number 3, we have a resignation with an intent to employ in Valerie J. Smith, principal at Pleasant Elementary for the purpose of retirement effective May 31, 2024, with her intent being to be reemployed in the same position for the 24-25 school year. Number 4 is addressing Mr. Burkett's departure. Janet Coe is a former teacher for us at Norwalk High School. She is coming back based on the NTA agreement at the following provision. She will be teaching half a day to complete the class load, the course load of Mr. Burkett's sessions. Number 5, we're very excited to have a new bus driver, Gabriel Gigante Oropeza. He has started with us. He's worked with Jerry Barker, and he's an excellent driver, great with kids. She talked about day one, how he's great with kids when they come on the bus, so we hired a great person. We are fortunate. Any bus driver we can land, we're always saying we're fortunate, but he's a top-notch person, as evidenced by the people who've worked with him. Number 6 is employment of a handful of classified and certified subs. 7, we have employment of supplemental contracts in Norwalk High School. So those that are teachers are listed first. For baseball, we have Jason Higgins, Chris Jackson, Derek Pigman. Track, we have Joe Kaiser. Special contracts, so those that are not teaching within our system. For baseball, Mike Smith. Softball, Julie Schmidt, Brian Creston, Brandon Bayak. For tennis, head coach Eric Mozina. And then for track, Phil Oglesby, Mark Singlinger, and Tracy Summers. And then we have a multitude. It's always great when we have volunteers, obviously not getting paid to do that position, but putting in the work and helping our kids out, as listed there for Norwalk High School, baseball, softball, and tennis. And on to your next page. We have many track, and that's exciting. If you know some of those names, those are solid track athletes that have been in Norwalk or nearby schools, and they're definitely going to help our kids going forward. So we're excited to have that list. Number 10 is several classroom volunteers. And that completes my personnel, Mr. President.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve items 2 through 10 of the personnel.
So moved.
Second? Discussion? I know personally, it's always sad to see resignations, but we do have some really great people on this list, and it's sad, and I want to thank them, and especially for us. Leona has been amazing to work with. She is always on top of everything. She helps me a lot. I like things the way I like to have them, and she's always right there. I never have to ask her to send me a word form, documented the agenda. I do absolutely wish her the best, and she has said multiple times she would still love to help in any way she can, and I just think that just shows her commitment. So
We will still see her around. She said, I will be coming to games, and obviously volleyball, her daughter, volleyball's the sport, but we will see her in person. So she is not disappearing for a while, just unfortunately during the daytime window.
any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Ritzenhouse?
Yes.
Mr. Norris?
Yes.
Mrs. Burkett?
Yes.
Mrs. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Superintendent's reports.
Yes, A1, we have updated facility charges for Norwalk High School, specifically this space. So Mrs. Rogers has moved up, so she is here if you do have questions. For my superintendent report here, I am willing to do the baton handoff to her. She can address that. I think you've seen it. You've had a chance to prove that. If you have questions, please ask. All right, number 2, authorize superintendent. So authorize myself to notify the following administrators that their contract is up. Rick Hudgel, who is our second-year Main Street principal, Patrick King, Norwalk High School principal, Miss Elena Perez, and Anthony Rourke. So our EL director, and then our bus mechanic. So that's the list of individuals whose contract is up this year. And that completes my superintendent reports.
We have a motion to accept all items under superintendent report.
So moved.
Second? Second. Any discussion?
Anthony Rourke, he's still planning on continuing his services, correct?
Yes.
Okay. How is that
Have
going?
you heard something that I don't?
No. I just wanted to make sure because you're talking up, and I just want to make sure that, does he need help? Because I know it's saving the district lots of money.
We have not sent buses out. We're spending more money because we obviously, what we pay in services for product, we're having those, but he is incredible. The accident happened into with the Perkins and that bus driver, that gets brought back to us, does the bulk of that work.
That's awesome.
So you talk about a smart decision that saved us a lot of money bringing him in. We had a decent number of see, we have a thumbs up from out here. He sees them on a daily basis.
So that's something that we might be looking at down, if we expand, we have a new bus garage, we have the facilities to do it.
Yeah. Ideally, that space that people spoke of what behind, we have Mr. Shield out here as well. That would be great to have Anthony Rourke working in that space.
And that's what I mean, additional technicians, that's something that we have the fleet that we would need.
Well, Mr. Shield could speak to it, but I would imagine we would have to increase our fleet with the amount of volume that we would have with transporting students. Is that accurate?
Yes, we believe so. We're gonna have to transport more students, so obviously we can't transport more students without more bus drivers. So that's what we're focusing on right now, is building up that bench player of bus drivers. So we have a few extras, and then we do have to add a few routes or change things. We still have to staff to do so. So that's where we're starting right now. Is we have a couple of them in training right now. So hopefully, nobody else leaves us or retires anytime soon. We can keep that staff and then have some new ones that we make.
If I had focused on that, we do have our maintenance crew that can actually work on maintenance items, because they kind of double as bus mechanics, right, as well. So, so yeah, he was an outstanding hire. I can't say enough praises for Anthony Rohr. So we need to bring him in front of you, because you would all enjoy him, as Mr. Ballman knows. But this meeting will be extended.
All right, any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mrs. Burkett? Yes. Mrs. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Norris?
Yes.
Mr. Ritzenthaler?
Yes.
January is school board recognition. So Kayla, we are going to recognize you, Mrs. Burkett, at your first board meeting, and thank you for all the work. So obviously, all the things you've done to this point, obviously, to say, I want to be on this board, that shows a lot. Anybody that puts themselves out into the community and says, I want the same for Mr. Gonzalez, that's big, that's important. Because the community, for the first time, if they don't know you, they've seen you tonight, and they know with this project happening, there's a lot of things that are going to be on all of your plates. So I want to thank all of you, and we always have some humor there, because we know what our dues are, but we do get certificates for each of you. So if you want to put a cash value on there, these are probably $1,500 certificates I'm going to thank you and give you. So.
Thank
Not the only
you.
person to be. Thank you. Mr. Gonzalez. Thanks. Thank you. Yes.
And I want to thank you also, I so much appreciate your service. It can be a thankless position, but it's so important, supporting public education and the dedication that you all show to our students.
It's honestly an honor to be part of it.
Yeah.
I can't believe we're starting our third year.
I know.
That's. No, we got it. All right, so next up is board discussion, comments, legislative report.
I have nothing at the moment.
So you're seeing, we have our facility dog will be here next, so that'll be our educational spotlight next month. So that'll be exciting to see. So he is getting his training, and he will be working with kids here very shortly. So it's pretty cool. So Mrs. Smith is allowed to pet the dog. Superintendent has to be restraining order, so no cooling hands can touch that dog. But kids will, and yeah, super powerful. Like I said, people have their own theory of why dogs, but it's important. Like all of us know the power of that animal, and we're going to see that with our kids. And Mrs. Smith has seen the dog in action, so very excited to have Kepler join the force. So.
Kepler does come with a lot of rules, so I'll be sure to forward that to you so that next quarter people are ready.
Mr. Zingelbert's been really happy with how all of the students and everyone's been there. They're all very good. They're pinky wave, and they're appreciating the dog thus far, but excited to be able to try.
I shouldn't have treats in the book.
That's
$6 of milk bowl.
I carry her up for customers' dogs.
Any other board discussion? All right, so I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? Roll call, please.
Mr. Ritzenthaler?
Yes.
Mr. Norris?
Yes.
Mrs. Burkett? Yes. Mrs. Crawford?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Thank you.